Jeff rooted through the nearest box, but all he could find were Christmas decorations, glass ornaments, strings of tinsel and colored lights, a delicate winged angel. Maybe the porn was hidden in a box deeper in the stack. Suddenly he saw himself from above with shocking awareness. How stupid! He was crawling, looking for X-rated magazines in someone else's cramped attic, alone, his sweatshirt riding up his back, semen dried and sticky on his leg. He felt vulnerable, exposed, and had to fight the urge to wrap himself up in his own arms and hide, squeezing shut his eyes. He felt nauseated. But the pornography was probably graphic hardcore. It would show everything. Jeff stood, hunched over to avoid the nails in the roof beams, and yanked the flap of a box to open it. The flap came free, and Jeff stepped backwards on the cotton candy insulation, which couldn't begin to bear his weight. Bits and chunks of white plaster and fuzzy pink hailed down on Doris in the living room. She squinted and looked up to see Jeff's legs, dangling and kicking, sticking out of a cloudy hole in the ceiling. Doris stood and pointed. "Legs!" she screamed. Red-faced, coughing, she ran to her room. Jeff struggled to pull himself back up into the attic, but his face was awfully close to the insulation, and he was afraid to touch it with his hands. He heard insulation causes cancer, like asbestos. It smelled awful, dusty like old newspaper. He looked down through the hole. Doris had run off after screaming something. He pressed down on the crossbeams to lift himself, but the seat of his pants was caught on the ragged edge of the hole. Doris reappeared below his feet, wielding an aluminum softball bat. "Legs!" she screamed, and she swung the bat, which connected solidly with Jeff's knee. "Fuck!" Jeff bellowed, and he started haplessly scrambling back up into the attic. Doris swung again, smashing Jeff's ankle. He kicked wildly at her, tearing his pants, and he fell all the way through the hole, landing squarely on his side on the coffee table, breaking his arm, scattering chains of paper people everywhere. His scream was as ragged as the hole above. Doris attacked again with a bat, but Jeff kicked her in the stomach, and she sat down on the floor with a wailing whoof. Betty came running out of the bathroom, her blouse untucked, flapping. "What the hell?" she shouted. "What's going on?" "She attacked me," Jeff cried. "Your sister attacked me. She should be put away. She should be shot." Agnes opened the front door, dusted with snow, laden with wet brown paper shopping bags. What's happening?" she asked, confused. "What have you done to my living room?" Heather peeked from around Agnes's shoulder. "Who cares about your living room?" Jeff screamed. "Call an ambulance." Doris stood up, holding her stomach. "Mom, Jeff kicked me. He kicked me. And Betty had sex with him. They were up in the attic." "Oh, man," Jeff moaned, beginning to blubber. "Will someone please call an ambulance? My arm's broken." Betty stood in the middle of the living room, staring at Jeff. Agnes dropped her packages. "How the hell could you let this happen?" she thundered. Heather picked up the packages and carried them into the kitchen. Doris began to wail, like a hungry, trapped dog. "What happened?" Agnes demanded. "I'm gone 2 hours and you destroy my whole house?" Betty stood staring at Jeff. Agnes grabbed Betty's shoulder. "Answer me, Betty," she shouted. "Answer me, young lady." "Stop it," Betty said. "Answer me!" Betty started to cry. A tear rolled out of the corner of her right eye and trailed down her flushed pink cheek. Agnes let go of her shoulder and stepped back. "Oh, honey," she said. "Don't cry. Don't cry." Doris silenced her howl instantly. She looked at Betty, worried. Heather peeked out of the kitchen, her eyes wide. "Call an ambulance!" Jeff screamed. Betty's shoulders were hunched. Her hands were tight-fisted at her side. Color drained out of her face, the pink tightening to eggshell white. Color seeped out of her peach blouse, her blue pants, her blonde hair, draining to gray opaque. She started to sob in earnest. "Stop it!" Agnes yelled. "Betty, stop crying! Right this minute! Have you lost your mind? Stop crying!" Doris and Heather stared, their mouths open. Betty covered her face with her hands and exhaled large choking sobs. She was ghostly, transparent, blurred. Agnes could see the floral pattern of the wallpaper through her. Agnes stepped forward and slapped Betty across the face, sharply. "Stop it!" Agnes boomed. "Have you lost your senses?" She slapped Betty again. Betty gasped. A half-drowned castaway reaching a beach. She crumpled to the ground, fully solid. "Oh, God," she whispered. "Oh, God, I'm sorry." Heather rushed to Betty's side. She put her hands on her sister's shoulders. "It's all right," Heather whispered. "You're okay now. You've stopped crying. You're not going anywhere. It's okay." Doris retrieved her scissors and began to snip off the tasseled fringe on the nearest lampshade. "Is the ambulance coming?" Jeff moaned. Agnes stared down at Betty, breathing with difficulty. "I just can't take this anymore," she said. She looked around the living room, at the white plaster powder settled on the rug, at the pieces of insulation everywhere like hunks of hair yanked out of the head of a clown, at Jeff holding his arm, writhing on the coffee table. "I can't take this," She turned and ran into the kitchen. "Why me? I can't keep this up. I didn't ask for this. I can't take this," she screamed from the kitchen. Heather stumbled to her feet and ran after her mother. Agnes tore the front of her dress with her fingernails. Buttons scattered across the linoleum. She yanked open the back kitchen door. Heather called, "Mom!" Agnes slammed through the screen door and jumped down the porch steps 2 at a time, slipping slightly. She deftly kicked off her shoes and ran into the falling snow, her hair flying wildly out behind her. Heather burst out onto the porch in time to see her mother dashing across the snowy yard, ripping off her clothes. Flecks of color on the landscape. A green dress, tan stockings, red cotton panties, Agnes's white bra yellow against the snow. "Ma!" Heather called. "Ma! Come back!" But Agnes had already spread her arms, lifted her sparrow's wings to the winter drafts, airborne on a chill breeze. She flew up past the frosted shrubs, and was soon a brownish dot in the swirling gray over the tops of the trees as the wet wind whipped Heather's hair. Agnes circled a moment, hovered, a pause, a deliberation. Then she swooped longingly out of sight over the glistening horizon. "Shit," Heather said. She turned back to the house. Betty was waiting inside, behind the kitchen screen door. "Did you see that?" Heather asked her sister. "What a mess." "She'll be back," Betty said flatly. "She won't find him." Betty sighed, looked up into the gray snowfall through the silver mesh of the screen door, and wiped her eyes. "I'm fine now," Betty said, and she turned to go into the house, her shoulders stiff, to call an ambulance for broken-winged Jeff. That's the end. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought.